We thank God for another opportunity to come together for this, our Sunday school lesson review. And I thank God for you tuning in and looking on with us as we go over our Sunday school lesson for today. We are continuing the summer quarter for the months of June, July, and August of 2026. Our summer quarter of lessons introduced to us men and women in the Bible who heard God's call, responded in faith, and spread the good news through their words and deeds. We are continuing in unit number 2 for the month of July, entitled Faithful Witnesses Say Yes to Jesus Christ. We're looking at 4 lessons that bring into view 4 persons who, when confronted by the person and power of Jesus, they leave with the truth about who they are in relation to Jesus Christ. Today we're looking at lesson number 7 for the month of July the 19th, 2026, entitled Climbing a Tree, What Will I See? And our printed passage is Luke 19, verse 1 through 10. Our text today is one of the most intriguing stories to me in the Bible. And perhaps that is because as a little boy growing up in church, I had the opportunity to play Zacchaeus in a play. And I was that short little guy, just like Zacchaeus, who climbed up a tree to see Jesus. So this story has always intrigued me, and we're thankful that we get to look at it today. Zacchaeus was a publican. That time, publicans were tax collectors. And what would happen often is that Roman power, who would reign over this area of Judea, they would employ Jews to go out to Jews and collect Roman taxes and bring them back to the Romans. This is what Zacchaeus did. He went out to his own folk, collected money for Rome, took it from them, and took it back to Rome. Now, a lot of time, these were not ones who had people looking over their shoulder or had any rules or guidelines. So how much they took up to a limit or even beyond was not something that was monitored. So a lot of times, not only were these tax collectors hated by their fellow countrymen, but they were also greedy. They would take above, and there was no telling how much they had pocketed or taken for themselves. For this cause, many Jews hated other Jews that worked in this tax collector's business. They just did not like them. Oftentimes they looked down on them. A lot of times they disrespected them. And the Bible tells us that Zacchaeus was a chief of the tax collectors and was very rich. So at the expense of his own folk, he had become very rich as a Jewish man. The Bible says one day Jesus is passing by. He wants to see Jesus. For the press of the crowd, he has to climb up a tree. And as Jesus is passing by, Zacchaeus, a man who is looked down on by everybody, a man that is disliked by everybody, a man that has a profession that is not the most respectable profession in the community. When Jesus passes by, instead of looking down on Zacchaeus, instead of looking past Zacchaeus, instead of looking beyond Zacchaeus, he sees him and tells him, I'm coming to your house today. Can I tell you, you can say yes to Jesus, and that's what we're talking about in this unit, saying yes to Jesus. You can say yes to Jesus even if your own standing in the community is not the best. You know, one of the unique things is that everybody has a past. Nobody is perfect. But oh, how quickly we forget about our past and what we used to do and what we used to be. And a lot of time people remember that and hold that over our heads and look down on us for that and shame us for that. But I want to tell you, Jesus is not like people. People may look down on you. But even in the story of Zacchaeus, Jesus sees you. And you are important to Jesus. No matter what your profession is, no matter what your livelihood is, no matter what you do, and people may look down and talk about it, you can still say yes to Jesus. He's still reaching out to you. He's still calling you. Because what happened? Jesus tells him, I'm coming home with you, and he goes and eats with Zacchaeus. And listen to what Jesus said. He said, salvation has come to this house. And Zacchaeus made a change. If I stole anything from anybody, I'm going to give it back fourfold. I'm going to give half of everything I own to the poor. What a change had happened in his life. And Jesus is still the same God that irregardless of what society or man says, you can say yes to Jesus. And not only can salvation come to your house, but transformation. You can be changed. It'll come to your house. And Zacchaeus is a beautiful example for us today that Jesus does not look past nor look beyond us just because we got a future or a past, or just because we are shamed, or just because we do something that everybody kind of looks down on. Jesus reminds us that he still sees us. And because he sees us, we were still worth dying for. That's why he went out to Calvary. I better leave that alone. That's why he died. That's why he arose and bore that sin and shame for us, that we could walk in liberty. Say yes to Jesus today, because he's still compelling and calling people to come down so he can go to your house. Thank God for this lesson on today.